Hey, all you wonderful R-Space fans. Today we've got a few stories that are all interesting in their own right. Let's dive in and see what some of the readers say, and then let's hear what you think. First up, my girlfriend led me to believe I got her pregnant, but I found out it wasn't mine after birth. The relationship was good, and then she tells me she's pregnant. For the most part, I'm careful, and she said she was on birth control. I was skeptical, but went to an appointment. I then figured it was just one of those things. I always wanted a family, so even though this was not how I wanted it to begin, I was overjoyed. We passed the first trimester, and I have her move in, at her insistence. Insert red flag I missed. We were planning what we'll do work-wise and how to set up the baby's room. She's pretty insistent she would go back to work, but be able to stay home. She swears she can make it work. I go to every appointment with her. Things are still good. We're in the third trimester, and I make my schedule work to still go to every appointment. Up until this point, I had been at each appointment in its entirety. This one appointment, she asked me to wait so she could talk to the doctor first. I'm super concerned that something is wrong with the baby, and she didn't want me to hear. I go in, and the checkup is done. Everything looks good. My girlfriend brushes off the concern over why I couldn't be there for all of it. Another red flag. We're about a month and a half from the due date, and I notice her being kind of secretive with phone calls and texts. She tells me it's work and it's confidential, etc. My antenna is now up, so I try to get looks at her phone. She's got Snapchat and Kik. I find it strange, but don't confront her. The baby is born, and I'm overwhelmed with emotion. The child is perfect, and things went fine. Then comes the part where they want me to go on the birth certificate. My girlfriend becomes really insistent about it. She's constantly asking me to do it, and seems way more anxious than I've ever seen her. Here's the red flag I didn't miss. I don't do it. We have an argument, but she stops pushing. I think it's because she knows how suspect it looks already. So we're home, and she has to go tend to the baby after I woke up. I noticed she set her phone down to go to the baby. I couldn't help it and looked. It was still unlocked. I start looking for texts or calls. I then find a whole conversation on Kik with a guy. All the updates of her appointments, pictures of her and the baby. Then I see it. The place she says she thinks it's his child. I confront her, and she apologizes. She admits the baby could be mine or someone else's, but she thinks it's mine. I demand a paternity test and leave. It's been about a week since the confrontation. The results came back in yesterday, and the baby isn't mine. She's gone to live with her mother. Here's the best part. It took me a lot of digging, seeing as all I had were usernames she talked to him to. The father is for boss. The secrecy was for him. The boss with a wife and 4 kids in middle and high school. I found the wife on Facebook and sent her all I had, including texts from my girlfriend saying it's his. I'm heartbroken so many ways. I'm lucky in a lot of ways here, but I'm so hurt. This has completely changed my whole outlook. I'm bitter, angry, and untrusting. I have no idea how to recover from this. I applaud you for listening to your gut and taking action. A lot of people make the mistake of ignoring the red flags and end up investing more of themselves and their time, only to get blindsided at some point. I would also like to applaud you for letting the other wife know. She deserved to. Also, I'm sorry for the pain that you are going through. It's soul-crushing, but it's not permanent. Take some time to grieve, but definitely start therapy if you can. Taking a professional's help in processing all of this will help you immensely. Also, start making some changes in your own personal life to help yourself move on, like changing your routine and get rid of anything that belonged to her or will remind you of her. If you get ahead of this on time, you get to control the situation and your outcome. If you don't, you risk slipping into a depression, which could end up taking a toll on you, your health, and a lot of other things, like your financial situation, your social life, etc. Update. I've still not spoken to her. I can't bring myself to. I'm conflicted because I still bonded with that baby, yet I'm not the father. That is painful. She still tries to contact me. I don't know if it's love. I won't talk to her. On to the guy who's the father. I told his wife. She didn't respond immediately. I found out through my ex that he lost his job. There's some justice in the world. He won't have anything to do with my ex. He blames her for the mess he's currently in. His wife contacted me over a week later. She apologized for what I went through. And she was still in shock, I guess. She kicked him out, and I have no idea where he went. Their kids know. Everyone knows. My ex still works there, but is in the process to find a new job, seeing as literally everyone knows what happened now. I'm still in shock some and still heartbroken. This holiday will be tough and sad for me. I know there's hope. I know it will get better. This shook me to my core, and I don't know how long it'll take. I'm ready to swear off any relationship ever again. Assuming she took all her stuff with her when she moved back to her parents' home, there is no good reason to talk to her anymore. You will do yourself a big favor if you work out what is going on in your head with a therapist. In the meantime, you are obviously a great guy. You rescheduled your whole life around your ex's prenatal appointments. You work hard at your job, and you were smart enough to catch that last red flag before you signed any birth certificate. You're also plenty young enough to start all over from scratch, have a long-lasting and satisfying relationship, and even have your own kids. Feel your feelings now, resolve everything as best you can, and when you're not really looking, something will come your way. On to the next story. My 44 male wife, 41 female, was recently contacted by her ex-boyfriend/co-writer, 36 male, and I've grown a bit nervous. As I mentioned earlier, we are perhaps too open about our past relationships. Her first husband was a real serial cheater. He was a musician and slept around with women from his gigs. She stumbled onto his emails only to learn that he was involved with 5 other women, one of which he'd gotten pregnant. Not wanting their child to grow up in a broken home, she wanted to save the relationship and reached out to one of her old internet friends for advice. We'll call him Chris. The two had been friends for 7 years, up until that point, but had never met. They were writing partners. In fact, before they lost contact, they had been writing a novel together. She tells me that when she reached out for support, he was very kind and had actually been recommending a lot of ways to get past infidelity, or that she should speak to an attorney about, in general being a good friend. Somewhere in that, they decided to revisit writing their book again. According to her, they would casually flirt, but as they lived on opposite sides of the country, they had no means to act. And all this, she decided her marriage was dead and stopped trying to fix things. Checked out, I guess. She and Chris expressed mutual attraction, and by the end of the year, he flew out to meet her. She filed for divorce right after the affair got physical, and Chris moved later that year to be with her. To make a long story short, her daughter, who was only 5 at the time, didn't really take to him. As she says, he didn't do anything wrong, she just wasn't adjusting properly after the divorce and didn't like somebody replacing her father. My wife told them they needed to take a break due to this, and due to the fact that he's a bit crass sometimes. She had only intended for it to be a short break, but he was apparently so hurt that he'd moved that far to be turned away 2 months in, and so he broke it off entirely. After months had gone by, they reconnected to try and finish their buck. They began sleeping together again during this time, but it was just a physical thing. They came close to finishing the book, but she started dating me. Thus, they stopped sleeping together. She felt weird about having an ex hanging around once she got in a committed relationship, and so by her own admission, she stopped returning his emails, which were all book-related, with the same frequency, and stopped working on it on her end so much. He grew frustrated after a few months of this and blocked her on everything. Which finally brings us to a month ago. After 4 or 5 years of no contact, he messages her out of the blue. He contracted COVID and nearly died. Chris contacted her because apparently in that time apart, he rewrote the book without her contributions, managed to get published, wrote and published a sequel, and released his work. Came really close to not being finished if he died. He wanted to make it known that if something should happen to him, that he wanted the rights of this thing turned over to her as she knows how it will end and helped create the story. Fair enough. That actually sounds nice. But then they get to talking. He's apparently writing a comic adaptation, and he invited her to come on board for it. He has a lot of the art done, and she was very excited showing me and explaining to me who all the characters were, their backstories, what she thinks he got wrong in the design. She also read the first book and is telling me which names he changed, which characters were and weren't in their version, the plot differences, and she seems to be having a lot of fun with it. I knew they wrote together, she's mentioned it before, but I had no idea they had this whole universe created. I can tell it was something that was really important to her. She seems like she might take him up on the offer, and this worries me. Every time they've worked on something in the past, it leads to sex, and there's a bit of sexual content in their writing. I'm not the jealous type, and I certainly don't want to step on her dreams she had buried, but I don't want a repeat of history. I'll admit I decided to stew their conversation, and while it seems like he's been on a level and is only discussing the project, she's pressing for information on his personal life. I wouldn't say in a flirty way, But she asked him if he's seeing anyone now, and when he answered no, he's too busy. Their relationship's just get in the way, and she told him he needs to get back out there. That celibacy isn't a good look on him. We're pretty open about her past sex life, so I know her ex-husband was terrible at it. And once, when drunk, she said of Chris, "Don't let a great screw convince you it'll be a great relationship." How the hell do I proceed? I know she was emotionally broken by her ex-husband, and that's why she cheated. But she did cheat with this man. I've met him. He seemed like an on-the-level guy, but they have a history that tells me something might happen. I want to approach my wife with my concerns, but I don't want to seem like an overbearing, controlling person. I want her to have her creative outlet, but she glows in a way I've never seen before when she talks about this book I barely knew anything about. It feels like it's something that was deeply important to her that she forced not to be important. I want that for her, but I don't want their interactions to escalate into something more like they have 3 times already. Let's see how the community decided to comment, shall we? Black Pearl Dust says, like someone else said, ask if you can be looped in on the project and be introduced to Chris so he's less of an unknown quantity. It seems unfair to stop her from doing this when it's a universe she puts so much thought and heart into creating. As a writer, I'd be devastated to pass something like that up. Not collaborating closely on sex scenes seemed like a very reasonable boundary, though. Have you talked to her about all of your concerns? The OP responded with, I did meet him briefly before. He and whoever he was dating at the time were coming out of a Starbucks as we were going in, and we all chatted for like half an hour. I don't know how much you can learn about a guy in such a short time, but he seemed nice enough. I could tell he felt awkward about it as one would. The thing is, she never painted him as a psycho or an a-hole. She looks at the relationship as something she got wrong and feels sorry for hurting him. If I got into their whole relationship, that post would have been 10 pages long, but as she describes it, they became internet friends in the early 2000s, and they were in an online roleplay and writing group. They were very close friends, and though there was some flirting, they never did anything or sexted, just close friends. She says she latched onto him really hard when she found her ex cheating, and that it was she who pursued him. Kind of monkey branched into a relationship with him for validation, and he ended up with the short end of the stick. I don't think she wants him or regrets leaving him, but I know she feels terrible for what she thinks she did to him. Update. Bad news. My wife's ex-boyfriend reemerged in her life asking to work on a mutual writing project that she abandoned years ago that he's achieving financial success with now. I don't know who this woman is. The level of deception is so involved and deliberate that I'm hardly capable of comprehending that I've spent the last 6 years of my life with this person. I decided to sit down with her and talk about how I felt about the situation, and that I was happy she rediscovered her old writing and expressed that it would be cool for her to explore that as a hobby or a profession, as she's quite good at it and clearly enjoys it. At the time, she agreed to, and said that Chris, her ex, being around wouldn't be a good thing, saying she was worried that he might use this as a ploy to talk with her again. When she said these things, I was like, okay, cool. She has the same misgivings I do, and she's not minimizing my feelings or calling me controlling. In fact, we're on the same page. Oh, how I was wrong. That conversation should have been the end of it. But for some reason, my brain started getting weird, and I began thinking it was going too well. Yesterday morning, when she got the shower, I took her phone and went into it. His number was there, and their entire conversation had been deleted. It hadn't been 3 days prior. Red flags. Checked Facebook Messenger. She's talking about her upcoming trip for work, which takes her to Vegas. Well, apparently, this 2-day-long thing has been canceled due to COVID, but she's been telling me she's going. They're discussing a hotel a town over and staying there, as well as sending each other people's vacation photos of Vegas. So she'll have stuff to show if I ask. She's talking about restaurants they can go to, how there will be a full moon when he's there, and it would look great on the beach. Oh yeah, and he's not on the East Coast as he presented. He moved back to town recently, since the prick actually has enough money to live here. He showed her on Google Maps where he's living, and it's taking everything I have not to drive my truck straight into his living room. A month ago, she claimed that she had to pick up her brother from the airport. Nope, that was him. The messages don't go back much further than that, but they reference talking about stuff during the years they supposedly haven't had contact. One line I read that he wrote has my heart racing with such freaking madness is from him. Yeah, we're just friends. I don't see you in 8 years and I'm inside you 20 minutes off the plane. Best friends, maybe. So she's not just planning to screw him, she's been doing it for months. That trip to her mother's a few weeks back where she stayed the night? Yeah, I haven't confronted her yet, but her smile fills me with so much hate now. I'm going to try my best and hold back on saying anything until after Christmas. The kids don't need the holiday being a constant reminder of this, but honestly, I'm probably going to snapping in front of her today and tomorrow because my ability to swallow this BS with a smile is almost impossible. Honestly, I'll be like if I can avoid taking a bath with the toaster. I'm losing my mind right now. Here's another update. Can't wait to see how this goes. I'd like to thank everyone who offered advice when I first posted this yesterday. It helped keep my mind away from the darker places and it gave my hands something to do. I've been talking with my brother for support and have continued to monitor their communications. She noticed me acting different. I told her it was just me having the blues over the anniversary of my aunt's death, which was enough so she didn't start realizing I know all I know. I spent 3 hours today in my car outside of McDonald's using their Wi-Fi to access her emails, and they're using freaking Yahoo Messenger to communicate. She's on this with her lady parts out and a ton of pics, all of which I'm documenting. Real cute. There's one with her pose with flowers I got her for her birthday. They've been sexting since like March. Some select quotes from her. I can't just start talking about the book all the time. I talked about you twice when he and I got together. If I started talking about you in the book a lot now, he's going to think something's up. Another one. You need to shave because that stubble is like knives. Almost had to put chapstick on my chin and under my nose. From him. You're getting it right before you leave here. I want him to kiss you after you spent the afternoon swallowing me. Honestly, my compulsion not to beat this man to death is strong. I won't do it, but the fact he's so, purposefully vicious is making me want to wear his teeth as a necklace. Here's a comment. You don't have any kids together, so no ties other than marriage? As soon as she leaves, I'd box all her stuff up and put in a storage for her. People say you can't evict her, and they're most likely right. However, nothing says you can't box up all her stuff and move her out. If she wants to get a lawyer and get some guys and bring her stuff back, well, that's on her. It's petty and mean, but so is everything you describe her doing. You could take the high road and be the better person, or you could go scorched earth. Personally, I say let it all burn. OP says, it's going to burn. And our final story, a quick one. Anyone deal with a wayward spouse going through affair withdrawal? Wait, is that a thing? Affair withdrawal? My 39 male wife, 43 female, has tried this before, cutting off contact. She usually stays in bed, a vegetative state for days, won't eat, engage in discussion, just sleeps or stays in bed. Usually, she caves to the misery and would contact the affair partner after a couple days. She's going through it again. Today's day 5 of no contact. Anyone go through this before? I've read this can last a couple weeks to get over the worst of it. I'm honestly just waiting for her to succumb to the misery and pack her stuff and leave again. Would make things easier. This time, might be different. I end before, yes, I know I'm a moron. She quit her job where they worked together and mentioned that her back and forth was taking a toll on the affair partner, who said they can't keep doing this. She doesn't have a phone, and I cut her off from credit cards, bank accounts in my name, so it feels like she was burning her bridges on going back. I have the final dissolution hearing scheduled for February. This after a 60-day waiting period, so I'm not being suckered into dismissing the divorce because she's being decent and not cheating on me for a couple of days. The top comment was given by Thrown Down 1000, quoting, anyone go through this before? I've read this can last a couple weeks to get over the worst of it. And his response, yes. Not just yes, but hell yes. My wife would make a decision to break it off, then slip into a depression where she would just lay there, feeling sorry for herself. She was, at best, cold to me and could not function without her shot of dopamine from her affair partner. I don't have a lot of experience with addictive behavior, but to me, it seems like that's just like someone going through withdrawal of an addictive drug without physical risks. Another quote. This time might be different. I end before, yes, I know, moron. She quit her job where they worked together and mentioned that her back and forth was taking its toll, a fair partner who said they can't keep doing this. She doesn't have a phone, and I cut her off from credit cards, bank accounts in my name, so it feels like she was burning her bridges on going back. His response? Mine did a bunch of this too. She had a choice after being caught a second time, or was it a third, fourth, I can't remember. But she quit her job as she couldn't stay away. That loss of income hit our household, and her instant depression was, to me, just another series of injuries on top of the cheating. In retrospect, I'd say that people who are this self-focused, they're not capable or they don't care about the right thing. which should be the relationship they should be trying to protect. That's not to say that the depression isn't real, I just don't know. And didn't know where to draw the line, and enough is enough. Reading and working with the fair recovery, check YouTube. Some of this is normal and your experience is not unusual. I just don't think it's a good sign of a functioning human with focus in the right area. If I had to do it over again, I'd send her packing and let her be depressed somewhere else, away from me and the kids, until she's ready to pick back up and contribute in a positive manner. Another quote. She doesn't have a phone and I cut her off from credit cards, bank accounts in my name, so it feels like she was burning her bridges on going back. Advice. I did it differently. Part of allowing things to move forward between us, I asked her to agree to a financial dissolution. In my state, it's basically a financial divorce where all matters of money and property are settled now. If the marriage continues, nothing changes. If it doesn't, she's very clear on what's going to happen. I'd encourage you to talk to a lawyer to see if you can do something to handle financial issues and stop community property, if possible, in your state. Filing for divorce is a good idea also. It puts consequences in the game. You might consider working with someone, a therapist familiar with infidelity, to get some boundaries around this and allow her to have grief where it is appropriate for the circumstance. But also to put some boundaries on this so she can't keep kicking you in the shorts by being her energy being directed toward feeling sorry for herself. I think that partners that are capable humans and take responsibility don't sit around feeling sorry for themselves.